Okay, and welcome back, students who are taking Math for Business and Finance and Math Applications. We're working on the Chapter 5 odd number problems, and we stopped on 5-35 in the last video, so we're picking up here with 5-37. Okay, the first shift of GME Corporation produced 1.5 times as many lanterns as the second shift. So I'm thinking about, the first shift, and even though it's 1.5 times as many lanterns as the second shift, I can think in terms of, well, the first shift plus the second shift is equal to how much? Well, it tells us then that GME produced 5,600 lanterns in November. So how many lanterns did GME produce in each shift? So I have the first shift plus the second, plus the second shift is equal to 5,600 total lanterns. Now, there was a relationship here. The first shift had 1.5 times as many lanterns as the second shift. So since we know that the first shift, to be able to determine the first shift is dependent upon the second shift, we're going to set the second shift we're going to set that to the variable s. Okay, so in order to determine what the term for the first shift is, we're going to replace the s for the second shift. So we have 1.5 times s, or 1.5 s. Okay, I converted the half to a 0.5. And so since now we know that our second shift is s and our first shift is 1.5s, all we need to do is just plug those back into our original equation, and we get the first shift of 1.5s plus s for the second shift is equal to 5,600. So 1.5s plus 1s is 2.5s is equal to 5,600. And we divide both sides by 2.5. And so S ends up being, let's see here, do the math, 5,600 divided by 2.5 ends up being 2,240. Okay, so we know the second shift is 2,240. 2,240. And the first shift, which is 1.5 times S, or 1.5 times the 2,240. So that's 2,240 times 1.5. That ends up being 3,360 for the first shift. And of course, we just plug those values back in to the original equation here. 3,360 plus 2,240, and that should equal to 5,600. So we know that our S is correct. We know that the number of lanterns produced for the second shift of 2,240 is correct. Okay, similar to other problems that we've done before, so I'm not going to go over it again. All right, 5-39. Okay, Ace Hardware sells boxes of wrenches for $100, and so we have wrenches and hammers at $300. So in the back of my head, I'm thinking wrenches plus hammers is equal to how much, right? But I have to also consider that they're priced differently, so it's not an easy equation like this. I will be taking into consideration dollar amounts here. It says Howard ordered 40 boxes of wrenches and hammers for $8,400. So that's going to be $8,400, right? But he ordered 40 boxes, right? Now, how many boxes of each are in the order? And check your answers. Okay, so we've got a couple of things going on here, okay? We know that we have wrenches and hammers, okay? And if I had, let's just say this is a pallet, okay? And on the pallet, I have 40 boxes. Okay, I don't know how many boxes had hammers, and I don't know how many boxes had wrenches. What I do know is that the total of the boxes is 40. So what I can do is I can say to myself, okay, I'm going to, let's talk in terms of hammers here. I can say to myself, I have hammers, and I'm going to set that to the variable h, okay? So then that stands to reason that my wrenches would be the total of 40 boxes minus the number of hammers, because both the hammers and the wrenches equal 40, right? Now, I've just set that relationship up, and I know that the two of those added together will equal the 8,400, right? So I have 40 minus h for the hammers, for the wrenches, plus h for the hammers is equal to $8,400. Okay. However, that is not the that would be the equation if the hammers and the wrenches were the same price. Okay. Let me go over here. Okay, so if my wrenches equaled my hammers, that would be fine, but they don't equal each other because for the wrenches, they're $100, and for the hammers, they're $300. So we need to take that difference into consideration. So for my hammers, I'm going to have $300 times the number of hammers, and I'm going to have the wrenches at $100 times the number of wrenches. And that will equal my 8,400. Okay, so that's the equation I'm going to work from, right? And I can I find out, how many hammers I have by doing the math for the problem. So let me quickly insert a insert a new slide here, blank slide, and I'm going to. We had $100 for the wrenches, and remember, 40 boxes times the number of hammers, minus the number of hammers, would give me the number of wrenches, each one at $100. And we're adding those to the $300 for each hammer, okay, and they total 8,400. So to do the math, right, I have 100 times 400 is 4,000, minus 100 h, 100 times h, plus 300 h is equal to the 8,400. So I keep all of my variables on the left and all my constants on the right. So I have a minus 100h plus 300h. They stay on the left. And when I move the 4,000 across the equal sign, that changes its sign. And now I have a minus 100 plus 300 is 200h. and that's equal to 4,400. And I divide both sides by 200. And so H is equal to 22. Okay. Now, with H equaling 22, I'm going to plug the 22. So I know I have 22 hammers, okay? And the number of wrenches I have is, for the wrenches, I have 40 minus H, which is equal to 40 minus 22, which is equal to 18 wrenches. So I had 22 boxes of hammers and 18 boxes of wrenches. And to prove it, we're going to plug the 22 back into our original formula here and do the math. So I have 100 times 40 minus 22 plus 300 times 22, and that should equal 8,400. So 40 minus 22 is 18 times 100 plus 300 times 22 is equal to 8,400. So I have 1,800 plus 6,600 is equal to 8,400. And of course, that's 8,400 is equal to 8,400. Okay. All right. I'm just going to go back real quick. I have only one more problem and I want to squeeze it into this video instead of starting a new video for one problem. But again, we had wrenches plus the hammers, and they equaled 8,400. Wrenches plus the hammers is equal to 8,400. We have two things to consider here. The relationship said that we had 40 boxes of wrenches and hammers, okay? Well, if I have 40 boxes, remember we're here, 40 boxes, and I like drawing diagrams for this. If I had 40 boxes all totaled, if I set the hammers to H as a variable, that means that 40 minus H has to be the number of wrenches, because when I add them together, let's just give this a number. If the hammers was 10, and then, so that's 10, and then 40 minus 10, that's 30. 30 plus 10 is 40, all right? So my relationship has to be 40 minus H for the wrenches. And I plug those back into my equation, and I end up with this. However, I'm not done, because I need to take in consideration that wrenches and hammers cost a different amount. So I multiply the number of wrenches by 100, because that's the cost for the wrenches. I multiply the number of hammers by 300, because that's the cost for the hammers. Now I've made things on a level playing field, right? And so then I go, and it's just basically doing all of the math. Okay, from here I'm going to do the math. I end up with 22 hammers. If I remember, our relationship was hammers was H and wrenches was equal to 40 minus H, because I had 40 boxes altogether. So when I plug in the 22 as my hammers, I plug the 22 into my wrenches, I end up with 18 wrenches, 22 hammers. That is, that's the answer for each. But now I have to check whether my work is right by plugging the 22 back up into the formula, and when I do all the math right here, I end up with 8,400 is equal to 8,400. If you have any questions, feel free to call. Okay. Let's see here. All right, word problem 5-41. Want to donate to a better cause? Consider microlending. Microlending is a process where you lend directly to entrepreneurs in developing countries. You can start lending at $25. Kiva.org boasts a 99% repayment rate. The average loan to an entrepreneur is $388.44, and the loan amount is 261.14. So the average loan to an entrepreneur is 388, and the average loan amount is 261. Okay, yep, that's what the problem says. With a total amount loaned of, okay, so if that's a total amount, that means we're going to equal 283,697,150. And how many people are lending money if the average number of loans per lender is 8? Okay, so let's see here. If the average number of loans per lender is 8, okay, and since that's per lender, well, let's set the variable to the number of lenders to 8. That gives us 8x, okay, and the average loan amount is 261.14. That should equal the total total loaned amount. Okay. Now notice, and that's right there is our equation. All we need to do now is solve for x. But here's the important thing about this here problem. And if you had gone back in the other previous chapters and watched my videos, I had talked about, when you're looking at a word problem, you have information that's directly related to solving the problem. You have information that has nothing to do with the problem. And then you have information that has to be modified in order to solve for the problem. And when you're looking at this information, here I am, I can start lending at 25. Well, it's asking me how many people are lending money if the average number of loans per lender is 8. So how many people are lending money and the average number of loans per lender. So per lender, and we're trying to find out how many people, is 8. So what I have here is I have $25, which has nothing to do with this problem. Because they can start lending at 25 doesn't mean that they're lending 25. That's just a starting amount. As we know, the average loan amount is 261. That's what's important. Kiva boasts 99% repayment rate. Has nothing to do with the problem. Okay. The average loan to an entrepreneur is 388.44. And the average loan amount is 261. Again, this here information has nothing to do with the problem. Okay, it's talking about an average loan to an entrepreneur, but we're talking about how many people are lending. Okay, so when you were listening to me, when I had read this, it started in the back of my head. I had to stop, and I had a little glitch there because I was thinking, okay, I'm lending to an average loan to an entrepreneur. That's the person borrowing. And the average loan amount, that's the total amount that they're borrowing. Well, that didn't equate to me. That's because this amount here, the 388, has nothing to do with this problem. So with a total amount loaned of the 283 million, how many people are lending? We want to know how many, so we're going to set the lenders to X. If the average number of loans per lender is 8, well, if each lender is making 8 loans and the average loan is 281.14, all it is just straight multiplication in order to arrive at 283 million. So in order to do this math, let me change the color of the pen here. I am going to multiply 8 times 261.14 times 8. That's going to give me 2089.12 x times x, right? And that's equal to the 283,697,150. And to isolate the x, we divide both sides by the 289.12. So x ends up being 100 135,797.44. Okay, that's the total amount of the total number of lenders. Okay, and that's obviously rounded off because you can't have a portion of a person. So our X is equal to 135,797 lenders. And if we take, we plug that into the X here, and we do the math, obviously it will end up being the 283 million. Okay, so with that said, I'm done for this video and done for this the word problems, and I'll see you in the summary practice test.